Welcome into the A-List podcast. I'm Kwani A. Lunis with A. Sherrod Blakely. As lively as I am right now, we did just this week get some bad news about a certain Boston Celtics. Sherrod, what's your reaction to Jaylen Brown being out for the rest of the season?
Bummer on every sense of the word. To me, there are going to be two camps that are going to really stand out as far as reaction to this. You're going to have the camp that believes that this gives the Celtics an easy, plausible escape as to justifying why this season was such a downer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have another camp that is going to believe that, well, you know what? This is a blessing because now we're not going to have to go through the torture of this team getting into the playoffs and just getting smashed at full strength. Because then when that happens, then you got to ask yourself, if this is them at their best and they're getting beat 4-1 by Milwaukee or whoever it is, what are they going to do in the summer? So this buys, I think, the Celtics some time to reassess what they have to work with exactly and not necessarily be moved to make significant changes. I don't think they need to take a wrecking ball to this team, but they got to do some things differently. And whether it's adding a defensive-minded assistant coach to the mix, whether it is getting better veteran players on cheap money, because Tristan Thompson hasn't really worked out. Jeff Teague ain't even in the damn team anymore. So they need to figure out a way to do, frankly, just put better, more seasoned players around their core guys. That they could use, a veteran guy that played in the league a few years back, a guy like Jerry Stackhouse, for example. They could use a Jerry Stackhouse type player.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you. And after hearing that he's going to have surgery this week and also looking back at the season that he's had, it's been a career best for him this past season, averaging 24.7 this year a game. So it's just really frustrating to see one of their best players be out. And to your point, it does give the Celtics, I think, excuse for eventually, for whatever performance we end up seeing in the playoffs. But again, there's not too much hope, especially seeing that we already haven't had hope for them over the last few weeks.
Yeah, and they haven't given us reason to have hope. I mean, it's every opportunity they've had to really make get a big win that kind of changes the narrative, if you will, for this team. They found a way to blow that. I mean, Tatum goes for 60, and they needed overtime to win that game. They legitimately had a shot at not winning that game, and it was a great comeback, and it showed just how good this team can be when they lock in. But it's also a reminder of this is who they are. Mm-hmm. They are a team that they've been down by double digits. I think 2 out of every 3 games they've played, and that's just not winning basketball. Mm-hmm. It's just not.
And don't get me started on that Heat matchup that we saw a few days ago, and now we're looking forward to the part 2. Which determined the seeding for the teams, but it's just how do you come back and then throw away a lead like that? Especially when people, I count them out. After giving up 79 in the first half, I thought the game was over.
Yeah, well, they didn't show up at all in the first half. And you can point to anyone and everyone on that roster. You can also point to Brad, and that's another guy that, he's catching some heat. This is really the first season of, before you might have a disgruntled fan here or there, but this is full blown. We need to talk, coach, is how fans are feeling right now. Mm-hmm. And, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the whole Brad Stevens blame game that a lot of people are playing now?
Yeah, I feel like we've been having this conversation the entire season, and it gets tricky because at the end of the day, you can't sit here and continue to blame one person for the flaws of an entire team. On the floor, we have 5 players. We see 5 players on the floor. So you can't necessarily pinpoint one person when in reality it's supposed to be a team effort. And I think the same goes when you look at the sidelines and you see that there are multiple coaches that are on the side and they're all helping make the decisions ultimately. But at the end of the day, they're not the ones that are playing either. So it gets tricky when you look at it. I definitely think that there is work that Brad needs to do, whether it's figuring out the right matchups or figuring out a way to motivate his team. He mentioned after their last loss that for some reason they didn't seem motivated and that the team is better when they do come out stronger. And for me as a viewer, it makes you wonder, what does he need to do to motivate his team so that they can have these consistent runs, but obviously he's mentioned that it just hasn't been working out that way.
Yeah. When I look at this team now and just the way they play, clearly there is a lack of just tangible energy, multiple effort type
Yeah.
vibe about them. And when you talk about the Celtics, you look at their team, and that's pretty much who they are. But there has been an exception to that rule, and his name is Aaron Nesmith. He has been a godsend to this team really the last couple of weeks. The way he has played, not just the fact that he's scoring the ball more, which is nice, but it's the intangibles that he has been able to bring to the table that I think has really been exceptional and has really given the Celtics hope. Maybe not so much for this season in the postseason, but certainly going forward. And we're going to get an opportunity to talk to someone who is very familiar with Aaron Nesmith, someone whose name I dropped a few minutes ago by the name of Jerry Stackhouse, his head coach at Vanderbilt. Jerry Stackhouse, coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores. How you doing, brother? How you been?
I'm doing great, Sherrod, man. Good to see you. Good to hear from you, brother.
You too, man. It's been a while. It's been a while. We'll reminisce a little bit later, but we're gonna jump right into what this is about. And obviously, we want to talk about one of your former players, Aaron Nesmith. And I gotta be honest, Jerry. Last couple of weeks, your boy's been balling out.
What's going on?
Your boy's been killing it. How does that happen? How does he go from, I mean, and you know him better than we do, but the way that he's killing the game now is with effort. We were expecting the three ball. We're expecting shot making, but it's his effort. How much of that did you see in your time with him at Vanderbilt that could give us some sense that this might be what we're in store for?
Man, he has a sense of toughness about him. And I mean, I knew that eventually he was going to find his stride. He works too hard. I mean, he shoots the basketball too well. And, he has just an uncanny knack of just, making sure the ball goes in. It doesn't matter whether he's off balance a little bit or anything, even in the post, he can score from all three levels. And I think you're going to continue to see the growth of his game as he gets more comfortable and he gets more opportunity. I mean, it was tough. He was coming to a situation with established all-stars on that team. So I knew it could take him some time to really find his footing. But, you're starting to see that now, and we're super excited to see it.
And despite the fact that the Celtics ended up losing that game to the Heat, that's one of the games where we really saw him go off every time Brad Stevens was able to put him in the game. How do you prepare your players for getting into the league and knowing that a lot of times they'll just have to be ready when they're called up, but they won't necessarily get the starting minutes that they probably want?
I mean, it was a little different for Aaron. I mean, I think for us, he was our best player, hands down. He was our best player. We knew that he was the guy that we were going to run a ton of our sets for and have him at the end of play. So for my message to him was make sure you make your teammates better. And share the ball, make sure when those opportunities you got two on you, you got to make the right play to them, and then you got to earn that trust because that's what you're going to see at the next level. You're going to be sharing the floor with other good players, and that's how you endear yourself to, more established players when you come in and you're, making those extra passes and doing all the dirty work, and that's who he is, man. That kid is, I would hate to fight him, and that's saying a lot. I just think you got that type of toughness and that type of quit, no quit in him.
Man, folks, y'all have no idea what that means. If there's anyone that you are not trying to get that smoke from in the NBA the last 25 years, it is Jerry Stackhouse, my fellow Scorpio.
No doubt.
But the one thing, Jerry, I wanted to talk to you about was, having been in the league, having been a coach at the professional ranks, you know all about the importance of getting the right combinations together and the right players on the floor at the right time. How much of a challenge is that for a young guy when you're used to, regardless of what the combinations are, you're going to be out there. And now all of a sudden, it's not there. You're playing here, you're playing there. As a coach, how challenging is it to find ways to get young guys into the mix that can help you, but they have to be in the right situation to help you?
Well, I mean, I think with all things even, there's a hierarchy, right? I mean, you try to go with the more experienced, more veteran players if all things are equal. But if your younger players are coming out and they're starting to, take a step, forward, then, I kind of had that when I was at North Carolina. Coach Smith, he was always about that hierarchy and giving it to the seniors and making sure that they had an opportunity to to showcase their last season. But when it came down to the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament, when it was win or go home, things changed a little bit. So I think, at the end of the day, it's about putting the best group out there that's going to help you win games, because we're in the business of winning games. And I think that's, ultimately that wins out. You can start out with a hierarchy, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who's producing.
Yeah, I just remember you and she completely threw that whole hierarchy to the wind. It was just like, I know they're young, but damn, 6'11" kid from Philly is kind of playing above the rim. Young fella from NC right around the block, he jamming on folks left and right. Maybe they need to play a little bit more.
A little bit more. And I think, Coach was, eventually it came around, and we got our opportunity. But it's about being patient and respecting our seniors, respecting our older guys. And I think that's the same message that we try to, give to our guys, man. Just keep working. Things can change in the game of basketball. It's not always, how it starts doesn't necessarily means how it's going to end. And I think that's the key to starting and finishing games too. It doesn't matter necessarily who started. I mean, toward the end of my career, I became more like a sixth man, but I still finished the games. So it's more about who finishes as opposed to who starts.
And when I think about really good teams, and you're gonna feel me on this one. I think about your boy Mateen Cleaves. When on that one beautiful night in Chicago, where a certain young fella dropped 57 on the Bulls, hammered them with 57. Now, Jason Tatum recently tied the Celtics record for most points scored in a single game with 60. And you did the same thing when you were in Detroit at the United Center. In fact, I think the 57 you dropped on them is still the most points scored in that building. Yeah. And we're talking about 20 years that you had that top spot.
In MJ's building.
Right. In MJ's building.
Exactly. Another one of your brother Tar Heels. Yo.
No doubt.
Now, you know what it's like to have that type of game and then the after effects of that. You got more games to play. What is that like coming back from just a historical game like that? Did they come at you a little differently, guys, defensively? I mean, did you sense anything was different about the way folks came at you after that game?
No, I mean, I just think it was like, I mean, you was talking about great teammates, man. If you watched the kind of the celebration after that game, after I had 57, you would think that Mateen Cleaves, scored 57. He was on he was on my back. I seemed like I was supposed to be on his back, but I was carrying him into the locker room. But no, that's just when you got those type of guys pulling for you, man. It was a special night for me. But I think, I was drawing a lot of attention every night. And it was just one of those nights that, I had it all going from, my post-ups to, getting in transition to 3-ball going. And it was just a special night. And my guys started finding me. It was like, Mateen, he was going to the basket, probably had a layup. He was looking behind and trying to find me. And it's, and that just shows you, when you care about your teammates and you protect them and you take care of them and you have an opportunity to do something special that they wanted to help be a part of that. And that's not always the case because, in this business is, young guys really trying to, come into the league and establish themselves. It's hard to, be selfless sometimes because, there's 60 new guys coming into the NBA every year, right? And so that means it's not like it's 510 players. It's not going to be 570 next year. It's still going to be 510. So that means 60 had to leave. So it's pretty tough out there. So you got to come out there with that mindset of trying to establish yourself. And I think once I did that, those first few years in Philly and early on in Detroit, then I was able to just relax and be myself. And I think that, all young players go through that.
How much of a challenge was it for you, Jerry, to establish yourself as a leader at a young age? Because I mean, I don't think people realize that you were getting buckets from the jump. I think you averaged almost 20 points as a rookie. You played 30 plus minutes, I think 7 of your first 8 seasons. And even when you stopped playing 30 minutes, you were playing like 28. So it wasn't like you just completely fell off the map. How do you, as a young guy in this league, establish yourself as a leader? Because that's something that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're still kind of working through that process here in Boston.
Yeah, I think it takes a little bit of time, and then I think it's important to have, veterans around. And I didn't have that in Philadelphia in my early years. And I think that if there was one thing that I could say that I could go back and do different, I would like to have had those guys that on my team that had won and had some success. I kind of had to figure things out on my own. It wasn't until I really got into Detroit and I got around the, Joe Dumars and Rick Mahorns and Grant Longs and those type of guys where I really understood what it took to actually win. Yeah, I was having good individual success, but when it came down to the end of games and us having to execute and do things, we early on, we just didn't have a frame of reference to get it done. But once you're around that and you got guys that have won, it makes that make you understand that process a little easier. And I got that in Detroit, and I was able to, as I went on to Washington and to Dallas, I was able to take those same little intangibles and share those with other young players and be kind of an extension of the coach and preaching all of the little things that were keys to winning.
Ready for some games?
Go ahead. What you say, Kwani?
I said, ready for games?
I'm always ready for games. But before we play games, I did want to point out one thing. Because we were talking about the 57-point game that he had, there were three things that I remember vividly from that game. The Mateen Cleaves looking for you when he had a layup. I remember that well. And I remember Ron Artest, a.k.a. Metta World Peace. I've never seen this happen before in an NBA game ever. When you scored like your 50th point, he was on his feet cheering for you. I've never seen that in my life. Someone who just got a 50-piece put on them was cheering for you.
Yeah.
That kind of blew me away.
It was kind of weird, man. He was asking, he was during the game, man. He was almost like he was asking questions about it. I mean, this supposed to be like one of the premier defenders. I mean, I still get a kick out of that, man. But if anybody, right, Metta. Ron Artest. I mean, he would be that guy.
He would absolutely be that guy. And when you scored your last bucket, you did the reverse dunk. Now, Stack, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't think he was gonna make it.
I was tired.
I thought you. I mean, you had already dropped the double nickel on him at that point. I'm thinking like, what? He just laid that thing up.
Yeah, I think it was. The guys on the bench knew that the record was when we had come out of a timeout, and it was like, I think I had a couple of good. Easy, probably some of the best looks I had all night that I missed, when it was on the basket to break the record. And then I got on a breakaway and, and I knew, so I was like, this is going to be the one to break the record. I got to do something. I can't just go in here and lay this up and do an easy dunk. I got to try to reverse it or do something. And then I barely got it over the rim, but I did. But it was a great moment. I think I threw my hands up a little bit in excitement because I knew it was a pretty memorable accomplishment.
Yeah, because when you were coming down on the break, it looked like you was breathing a little bit heavier than you was breathing in the first and second quarter. I'm thinking like, lay it up, brother, lay it up.
Man, that's why people think it's easy, man. That it's not easy when you see these guys do it and you take it for granted, man. Just guys that can go out and it's not even easy getting up 20 shots in the NBA game. Right. More or less scoring 50 or 60 points, but it takes not everybody on a team can even go out there and can get 20 shots up, to have the talent to be able to put yourself in the position to get 40 points. You have to appreciate that. I think guys that play the game, understand that. But I guess a lot of people who watch who just because they make it look so easy, they think it's all like, oh, what, I can go out there and do that. But no, it's a talent within itself just to go into a game and be able to get up shots.
Absolutely. Let's play some games, Kwani. What you got?
We have one game before we let you get out of here. It's called Fill in the Lane, and basically give you a question and you fill in the blank. So for our first one, in 5 years, Aaron Nesmith will be blank.
In 5 years, Aaron Nesmith will be an all-star.
Woo!
5 years. Put it in the books.
Record, please.
Right. And the second one, if you weren't coaching at Vanderbilt, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be coaching in the NBA or coaching high school. I'll be somewhere close to the game or probably trying to find me a 10-day somewhere. I'm going to be close to the game of basketball.
Okay, so if you couldn't coach, let's take coaching out because I feel like that was kind of cute.
I don't know. I mean, I got so many different interests, but I mean, I probably, if if I had my dream, I would probably be some type of entertainer. I would be like an R&B artist or Christian, a gospel artist of some sort. That's probably what I'd be trying to do.
Now Stack is being low key, but Stack used to be humming a couple tunes in the locker room back in the day.
I kept a little something. See that? No, I know you're gonna put me on the spot. I got plenty of stuff on YouTube.
Okay.
Yes,
we're gonna go look for it.
We're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna leave it alone. But no, the thing that I've always appreciated about Stack is just that he's a competitor. I mean, this brother came ready to compete every day. And when I look around the league now, it's not the same. I mean, guys want to win, but do they really want to win, or do they just not want to lose?
It's a little different, man. It's a little different. Kids are different now. I mean, they really get along, and what I'm saying, they grow up, and doing all the camps and everything, and they form like friendships and whatnot. I used to get mad at Mateen and all. I'm like, man, we don't do no whole lot of hobnobbing before the game with these guys. You want to go out with them after the game? So he was like, man, it was funny. He was telling Michael Curry, I think a year or so later, like, man, Stack had us mad at everybody. But nah, it's just we got to protect that little competitive edge, man, and that's what I was about. Just wanting to compete, not a whole lot of trash talking. I never was big on all of that. I mean, I felt like if you had a whole lot to say to me, then we can handle that some other way. Let's just play basketball and see how that ends up.
Yeah, and more times than not, when that point was made, it was like, all right, let's just play basketball.
Let's just hoop.
We don't want that smoke. Let's just play basketball.
No doubt.
Jerry Stackhouse, head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores. Thank you so much for your time, brother. This was great. I told Eric, I was going to make this happen. I was going to stay within that time. Yep. You got big meetings down the road.
No doubt, man. Great kid, great family, man. I just had to say it, man. I think that a lot of who Aaron is because of his parents, man. He had older parents. His dad made him do a lot of things. My dad, I mean, it was almost deja vu hearing some of the things, cutting trees and doing landscaping work and all those little odd jobs he did as a kid. Those things made us, realize that we don't want to do this the rest of our life. We better get this jumper right. And I think he took that to heart, and that's why he's who he is. But special kid, sweet kid, but tough competitor.
Absolutely, and had an awesome coach at Vanderbilt. My man.
Appreciate that, man.
Two-time All-Star Jerry Stackhouse. Man, thank you so much for coming on the A-List podcast, and I'll be talking to you soon, my friend.
No doubt.
Jerry Stackhouse, my man. Ooh, man, I forgot that he's got some stories. So we definitely had to limit our time with him because he might be spilling too much tea. He's just a really interesting guy, and I'm glad Aaron Nesmith is here. Great insight on Nesmith, particularly some of the things that he's done in the shot. What are some of the things jumped out of you about what Jerry had to say about Aaron?
I mean, in 5 years, he's going to be an NBA All-Star, and like I mentioned in the last few games, we've seen him, the burst that we've been able to see him on the floor. I can definitely see that happening as long as he's able to get more playing time and really establish himself in the league. What about you?
I think that's going to happen. I think the fact that he plays hard every game is going to get him on the floor more. And again, for him, I think it's just about opportunity and confidence. And he's getting the opportunity now, and I think we're seeing his confidence grow because of that. He's a much better looking shooter now than we saw earlier in the season. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think there's less pressure on him when he's out there now. And that's one of the, to me, that's one of the yin yang dynamics of young players. It's like you want to give them more time if they play well, but they've got to get time in order to do just that. So he's figured out how to really increase his, the trust that Brad Stevens has in him. And to me, the byproduct of that is really good play from a guy that I think going forward is going to be part of that circle of trust that Brad has with his players when we're talking about Tatum and Brown specifically. So enjoyed our time with my good friend Jerry Stackhouse, fellow Scorpio. Didn't we? And there's so much stuff we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about the 10-cent wings that he introduced me to down in Durham. I didn't even get a chance to thank you for that. He did. That was my guy. He's a good dude. He's a really good.
What did he do? He introduced you to something?
There's some 10-cent wings at a spot down in North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
Look, man, I'm all about the food thing, as you
You
know,
had me at you know.
and I don't have to tell you that because y'all don't know how much Kwani loves food.
When we start doing the podcast in person, we got to start doing that at restaurants.
You know what? We're gonna talk about that offline because I got an idea. And I think it's gonna work. It's gonna be food for thought and food for our bellies. Put it that way.
Ooh, I like that.
That's what I'm talking about. Speaking of sharing, Kwani, what you got coming up that you're gonna be sharing with the people?
Yeah, so on NBC10Boston.com/10 questions, you can check out my first API Heritage Month interview with Tram Nguyen. She is a representative. See, there we go. Stop Asian hate. I love it. And she's a representative here out of Massachusetts, actually the first Vietnamese American woman to be elected into office in Massachusetts. So that was a really interesting conversation. Next up, we have a good friend of the A-List podcast, Abby Chin. She'll be talking to us about her career, her life as well. So stay tuned for that one as well. But the rest of the month is dedicated to AAPI Heritage Month. So definitely tap into that. What about you, Sherrod?
Nice. I'll be weekend wrapping up some just what the Celtics are doing for Boston Sports Journal. For Bleacher Report, kind of did a little bit something different this week, and actually it should be out today or tomorrow at the latest. I think it might be out today. Looked and talked with some different executives about who I think is going to be Rookie of the Year, Anthony Edwards of the Minnesota Timber Pups. And for those who are not quite familiar with him, he's the guy that had the Dunk of the Year.
You really said Timber Pups, though. Pups.
They're because they're pups. They're not wolves.
I know, but it's hilarious.
They've been the Timber Pups for way too long. I've been calling them that for years. Basically, ever since Kevin Garnett left, they became the Timber Pups, and they've never quite grown up since then.
Yeah.
So I've got that coming for Bleacher Report, and I mentioned what I have for Boston Sports Journal, and obviously, this content here with Jerry Stackhouse, which was really good. I like you, Kwani. I kind of wish we had a little more time with him.
We need an encore.
But we may just have him back at some point down the road.
Before Nesmith is an all-star.
It will not be within 5 years. It will be before that. We will have him back before that for sure. But yeah, so that's what we got coming. And this was a good one, Kwani.
It was a great episode.
I feel good about this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, this brings Celtics fans a lot more to look forward to than the season itself. So hopefully we've been keeping people entertained.
Absolutely. And Stackhouse is a truth teller now. That he doesn't, as most people who ever play with him know, he is not one to just give you compliments just because he like you. Mm-hmm. He'll smash on teammates in a minute if they deserve it. He's about that straight no chaser truth. So I'm confident in Nesmith. If he's confident in Nesmith, he's going to be an all-star. So
bright future ahead for the young kid.
Absolutely. Another great podcast in the books for Kwani A. Lunis, Sherrod Blakely, the A-List podcast, and we are out.